Hey everyone, and welcome back to OntarioCryptids. I'm going to get right to the stories today. We are heading to Nevada. I don't recall having many stories told on this channel from Nevada before. So I've dug a little deeper this time and I found 3 great stories. Now, on a side note, last week I had gone to a birthday party, and by the way, it was fantastic and it was really nice seeing the ladies again and just getting out and socializing. Now, before I get back on track, I just want to add one more comment, and that is, it is getting colder up here in the Great White North, Ontario. So the furnace is on, so every once in a while you may hear the furnace blowing above my head. All right. As you know, I'm always looking for great stories to be shared on this channel. So if you have a story that you would like to share in a safe environment, then forward your encounter stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Are you guys ready? Okay, go grab yourself a beverage and get cozy on the couch or chair and sit back and relax. All right, so this first story takes place on September 15th of 1980, and we're going to Story County, Nevada, and the nearest town is Gold Hill, NV. I'm not sure what the NV stands for. One thing I want you guys to note is in the background, you see Devil's Gate. I don't know, but that's kind of a strange name, and it doesn't really seem to have anything around it. It just says Devil's Gate. Okay, let's get to the story. I was a reserve deputy sheriff for Story County Sheriff's Office. I was employed by Houston International Minerals Corp. At Gold Hill as their on-site security supervisor. I had worked a day shift. I had ran some kids off of the old mill at around 3:30 p.m. on September 15th, 1980. I was showing my swing shift officer the area I had ran the kids off from. We were in the security vehicle parked on the high side of the south side of the old mill gold mining. We saw that the boys, 4 of them, were running back down the ravine to the creek below. It was 4:15 p.m. As the boys reached the creek, they must have scared a group of girls at the creek bottom because they started screaming. There was a lot of noise being made by the girls and the boys laughing and yelling. At first, I thought they had scared a deer west of them near the rock outcrops. And then I thought, no, that is too big to be a deer. I could see it moving among the trees heading up the other side of the ravine at a very fast pace. I thought it must have been a lone Mustang as I watched. My security officer got the binoculars from the seat and said, "Oh my God." I looked closer and then I realized it was not a Mustang. I was looking at a very large graying brown man-shaped thing about 10 plus feet tall. It was obviously male because of its build. As it cleared the trees near the top of the hill, I could clearly see it. It was covered with hair from head to toe, graying like a person in their 50s. It was at least 3 feet across at the shoulders. At the crest of the hill, it turned and looked back down the ravine. It was maybe 100 yards across the ravine. I had an unobstructed view at this point. It stood on the hilltop maybe a minute looking back down the hill and then turned and moved over the other side of the hill out of view. We drove over to where we had seen the thing last, about a 2-mile drive on a dirt road. It was about 4:50 p.m. by then. We saw no further signs of it, but was able to establish that the thing was standing next to a tree that was 11 feet tall, and it was just as tall as a tree that we saw. All right, so this next story takes place mid-month September of 1984, and it takes place in Douglas County, Nevada, and the nearest town is Genoa, and it's on a BLM forested area. In September of 1984, my friend and I were hiking on the east side of the Sierra Nevada mountain range above Lake Tahoe and the Carson Valley above the town of Genoa. Both of us grew up in this area. Although in high school I was kind of cut up, my friend Linda graduated valedictorian of our class 5 years earlier. She is very logical. We have often hiked this trail that basically goes straight up the side of the mountain and over to Tahoe. It is a strenuous hike. When we parked our truck at the trailhead, there was another car parked there as well. We were a quarter of the way up the trail when 2 teenage boys came running down the mountain towards us. The trail was extremely steep, and they were running for all they were worth. They stopped long enough to implore us not to go any further up the mountain, as they had seen a monster or something. There was an old deer hunter's cabin at about a halfway point, and we told the boys that we were only going to go that far. We thought they were drinking or on drugs, so we shrugged off the incident, laughed and joked, and we wished we had what they were smoking. We reached the cabin without incident and sat down on the bluff that overlooked Carson Valley. We split a soda that we had brought, and I took out my recorder, a flute-like instrument, and began playing some little tunes on it. We were alone on the mountain, or so we thought. After about an hour of putting around, we decided to head back down the trail. I kept smelling dog dew or something dead. I even checked my shoes. We were near the creek gathering a pine cone for an art project. I was facing downhill and Linda was facing uphill, and we were examining a particular perfect cone when Linda looked up and exclaimed, "Oh my God, it's a bear. No, it's a guy in a bear suit." I looked up and I couldn't believe it. We were a stone toss from a 7-foot-tall hairy dude. He looked directly at us, and to this day, Linda and I felt something pass between the three of us. He stood across the creek from us. His hair was the color of dry pine needles and covered his whole body, with the hair thinning just on his chest and face. He had a large, broad chest, but not breasts like a female. His arms were hanging at his sides, nearer to his knees, and when he walked, he took long strides and his arms swung freely as he walked. He didn't seem to fear us, although he began to walk straight up a pine needle-covered slope, barefooted, without slipping. As he moved away, Linda grabbed my arm and began dragging me down the hill. I couldn't take my eyes off of him, and he never took his eyes off of us. I did not feel to this day that he meant to harm us, but instead I feel that he was just as fascinated with us as we were with him. His face seemed almost serene, with very intelligent eyes. His face resembled an orangutan. He had large eyes and a flattish nose. I sketched a picture as soon as I got home, and Linda confirmed that I had captured his likeness. I wish I had a camera on me that day. As we continued at a fast pace down the hill, he remained on the ridge above us, paralleling in the same direction. We reached our truck, and I could see him crouching on a granite boulder at least a football field distance between us. I yelled up to him that he was very cool, but that he shouldn't be scaring the crap out of the locals. He stood up on his boulder, and Linda told me to shut up and get in the truck. We were strangely disturbed that afternoon and evening. We thought of going to the Forest Service or the Sheriff's Department, but criminy sakes, who would have believed us? Plus, in our community, they would have just wanted to shoot him. We have since hiked there many times, always hoping to catch another glimpse. We are married ladies with kids, and we take the kids up Bigfoot Canyon periodically in search of our elusive friend. A few years ago, the wind blew down some trees during a storm and exposed an area that we had not seen from the trail before. When we went up to investigate, we found a large boulder and some older pine trees with branches low to the ground around it. You could duck down and go under the trees near the wall of the boulder, and it looked as if something or someone had made a natural shelter there. The pine needles had all been tramped down, and it seemed to be away from the prevailing winds, a great place for deer, bear, or perhaps a Bigfoot. We hope so. I will never look at life on this earth the same way. I have seen a Bigfoot, and not only does it make for a great tale around the campfire at night, it fuels my imagination about every little sound I hear when I'm in the wilderness. I am intrigued. I only hope that no harm comes to the Bigfoots. I believe that the great creator of all life shares the sight of the Bigfoot with people who might grow from their experience. I know Linda and I have both grown. Even if we share the experience with someone who doesn't believe us, it really does not matter. We know what we saw. He was so close in proximity, it was obvious to us that this fellow belonged here. He was as natural as the sky, creek, trees, and the deer. Lastly, I spoke with an Australian mountain biker who had a strange experience 5 years ago directly on the other side of the mountain on the Tahoe side. He said he was riding his bicycle and exercising his German Shepherd. He said he kept smelling something dead. He said his dog was running ahead of him, and suddenly he said the dog yelped and turned around without waiting for him and ran back down the mountain. This man said that he never did see anything, but he felt there was something watching him, and he said he felt the hair on his neck and arm prickle. He thought maybe it was a bear, but the smell kept coming back to him. This story was shared with me before I told him my story. All right, so this is going to be the last story of the day. It takes place in July of 2004 in Esmeralda County, Nevada, and the nearest town is Dreyer, Nevada. Again, this one takes place roughly 1,000 feet off the peak of Boundary Peak Mountain. I have been a police officer in Nevada for over 19 years. In 2004, 2 of my college roommates called me from Idaho and wanted to set up a climb to Boundary Peak. Boundary Peak is the highest mountain in Nevada at over 13,000 feet. It is located in the White Mountains east of Bishop, California. One of my roommates is a loan executive from a bank in Idaho, and the other is a farmer. We left Boundary Peak Trailhead on the last Saturday morning of July 2004 around 6 a.m. Around 2 p.m., we were several hundred feet from the summit of Boundary Peak. There were 2 climbers making their way down the trail towards us. The last 300 feet of the climb is steep with lots of obstacles, and the trail is very narrow. We waited at our location so that the 2 climbers coming down would have room to pass on the trail. As we were waiting, I spotted a lone climber making his way across the Rimrock Trail between Montgomery Peak and Boundary Peak. He caught my attention because he kicked a rock off the west side slope of the sheer rock cliff. When the 2 climbers reached our location, I observed something moving south about 300 feet down from us in a large bowl. The movement was too fast to be another climber because the area that it was in was full of small shale rocks. These rocks are extremely hard to walk in and keep your balance on a steep mountainside. There were also several large boulders in with the shale rock where the trail was that this climber was using. When I first observed this subject, I said out loud, "Look at that guy go. He's wearing a funny, hairy climbing suit." My first thought was that he was some expert climber wearing a modern high-tech climbing suit. All 5 of us looked at what I just pointed out, and there was a dead, calm silence among us. We all sat there for about 2 minutes and watched as this creature made its way to the trees below us. While I was watching it, I made a listed observation. This creature would run on 2 legs upright until it came up on a large boulder, and then it would crawl over it on all 4 legs and run for a while on all 4 legs. After a short distance, it would stand back up on 2 legs and run until it came up to another obstacle. This creature was between 5 foot and 5'6" tall. Its arms hung down to almost its knees. The head area appeared to have long hair around the face and head. It appeared to be a light brown in color with darker hair around the head and the groin area. Once it reached an area of heavy vegetation, we lost sight of it. It took over 60 seconds to reach the vegetation from the first place that we observed it. I asked the other climbers if they knew what it was that we just saw. They did not say anything. My first thought was that it looked like an orangutan. I told this to one of my friends, and they replied, "Yeah, maybe it escaped from captivity." Everyone left it at that, and we all started back up the summit, while the other climbers made their way down. Before the other climbers left, I asked them where they were from, and they said South California. As we were going back up, I spotted the other lone climber crossing the divide between the peaks. He was about half a mile south of Boundary Peak. I thought to myself that this climber might have scared the creature from his hiding place when he knocked a rock off the cliff. Once we were on the peak, the lone climber met up with us. He was an Asian male. I asked him if he saw anything down the south slope of the divide that he just came across. He said that he didn't see anything. All 3 of us in our climbing party had cameras. They were all in our backpacks when we observed the creature. I initially thought of trying to take my gloves off and taking off my pack to get my camera out. I realized that my camera did not have a zoom on it and that a regular 35mm would only show a dark spot at a distance of over 300 yards. When I returned home, I told a couple of my close friends about the creature that I saw. I did not want a lot of people to know about what I saw because I did not want them to think that I was losing it. In February of 2007, I bought 10 acres of land about 5 miles from the area that I saw the creature. I did not know it at the time, but this is where I'm going to retire. I was talking to one of the local residents and I told them about what I saw up the mountain. They did not seem surprised and told me about a local prospector who saw something in the forest that scared him to the point that he doesn't want to talk about it ever again. There you have it, guys. 3 great stories from Nevada. There were a lot of similarities in some of these stories. 2 of them were some sort of law enforcement officers. They all took place around or near a peak and like a mountain range, I should say. And 2 of them were hiking and 1 was just patrolling the area. What great locations. A lot of these locations were pretty high up the mountain range while they were hiking. Great description of what they saw. All 3 were visual sightings. The last one was interesting, how they described the movement of the creature. I'm wondering if it was more of a juvenile. Loved the second one. The second story was great, with the two ladies walking up the hill and hiking up the hill, I should say. And they were, I would say, the closest to the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, than any of the other stories. But great stories. I hope you guys enjoyed them. I enjoyed telling these stories. Before I let you guys go, if these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit that like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you are new to my channel. Have yourself a great weekend, and we will see you all next week right here on Ontario Cryptids.